Welcome back to Shea Stadium. I'm Fran Healy, and this is the New York Met postgame show. And we got an interesting show. My guest is former President Richard Nixon. I guess one of the biggest baseball fans in this country. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Mr. President. And I've got to ask you, I know as President of the United States, if you're going to Missouri, you got to like Kansas City. If you're going to Minnesota, you have to like the Twins. What's your favorite club?
My favorite club is always the home team. I'm for the Mets and for the Yankees both. But I have a soft spot in my heart also for the Angels because I was out there, and I want to see Gene Autry win one. He's not going to do it this year. It looks like the Twins in the Western Division, I think.
Yeah, how about the Mets here in New York?
Well, the Mets, after tonight, are 1.5 back, and certainly they've got a very good shot. But, you know, we've all been watching the Cardinals. We've got to watch Montreal.
That's right.
Because they're coming right along. It's going to be a great finish.
How about the excitement generated tonight? Up until the 6th inning, there wasn't much excitement. And all of a sudden, Darryl Strawberry's long home run.
Well, I've got to give a little credit first to the captain. Keith Hernandez, you know, got the second hit, the first hit of the inning. And then Darryl Strawberry tied the score. And another thing I want to say, let's give a little credit to Gary Carter. You know, I thought it was really bad when the fans booed him because this guy's playing hurt. You as a catcher know it's the toughest position to play. And I was so glad to see him come through. 3 hits, drove in a run, and so forth, because he's a fine catcher, handles those pitchers. So here's one for Carter, too.
And, Mr. President, you've been watching baseball for many, many years. Have you ever seen a guy consistently hit the ball as far as Darryl Strawberry has been doing it this year?
It's the most exciting thing to watch him. He gets up there. They used to say that it was exciting when Babe Ruth struck out. It was exciting when Reggie Jackson struck out. It isn't quite that way yet with Darryl, but believe me, when he hits one, I noticed that when you announce the games, you say, it's gone the minute he hits the ball. With others, you wait. Like Mookie tonight, you wait a little while before you thought it was out. With Darryl, there was no question, except the second one, I think, was a little closer. But the first one was such a towering, beautiful shot.
Who was the best baseball player? First up, is baseball your favorite sport?
Well, baseball and baseball season.
Okay.
I like football, too, but I would say year in and year out, baseball, because you can see it and hear it every day, and on television you can get it every day here in New York.
Did you have one favorite baseball player?
Hard to say anybody that was a favorite. Looking back over the years, I remember particularly, of course, the great New York teams. I remember, too, the great teams in Philadelphia that Connie Mack had. It's hard to pick out one. I think of the exciting players, I'd have to say Reggie of our time, Reggie Jackson. I mean, when he got up there, I mean, it was either a home run, a strikeout, but whatever he did, it was sent the fans really into ecstasy.
Now, as far as the best player you've ever seen?
The best player I've ever seen? Well, let me say at the present time, looking at the Mets, I would pick Hernandez. Hernandez, he hits well. He doesn't hit that many home runs, but he hits for average, as we know. But we got to remember that fielding is defense, just like in football. Defense is just as important as offense. And Hernandez saves so many runs. If it's anywhere in the neighborhood, Hernandez gets it. I would say overall I would pick him as the best player in the Mets team.
Mr. President, as I mentioned, you've been a big baseball fan. I recall reading, and I could be wrong, that you said...
You're never wrong.
You know, I think you're right. No, I'm only kidding. I recall reading that when you were President of the United States, you said the only other job that you would consider would be commissioner of baseball. Was that something I read, or am I...
Well, as a matter of fact, after I was defeated for president the first time in 1960, I was approached by some of the Yankee people as to the possibility of my being considered for commissioner of baseball. And let me tell you, it was very tempting at that time. After it was time to change careers. But I would say the next best job I would like, though, would be yours, or to be writer. I mean, to travel with the teams, to be able to talk about the game, to follow it, to get to know the players. I think that's got to be the greatest job in the world.
Okay, now we go. When you were in the White House,
regardless of how much you're paid.
They treat us well.
That's good.
Too well sometimes. I've got to ask you, when you were in the White House and you had to go over to throw out the first ball, did you get excited about that?
Oh, yes. But I just didn't go to throw out the first ball. You know, when I was vice president, Mrs. Nixon likes the game, too, and our daughters did. And many times we went to Griffith Stadium, and believe me, you got to be a baseball fan if you were for the Washington Senators. And We used to go there all that time and throw out the ball. Eisenhower went on occasion, but not always. And I thought it was a great privilege to throw it out. But what I prefer to do is to go not there as a celebrity to throw out the ball and get the cheers or the boos or whatever that a politician gets. But I like to be in the stands, to be there with the people. Like, for example, here at the New York Mets, I got a friend, Bob Aploff's got a marvelous box, and I'm always invited to stay there. But I prefer to sit right out there in the stands where you get the feel of the game. You do not really appreciate a baseball game sitting in a box. You got to sit in there with the fans.
A few years ago, I did a ball game on Sports Channel. It was a Yankee game, and it was the 4th of July, and David Getty threw no-hitter. Mel Allen and I were doing a game. I believe you were at the ballpark.
I was there, you know. And let me say, I had a hole-in-one in golf once, and I was playing with some people who had played all their lives. They said they not only had never had one, they had never been with somebody when they had it. And to be there for a no-hitter, it was an exciting day.
Is that the only one you've been there in
Oh,
person?
absolutely. I've never seen one even on television. But it was a great experience, and I was really surprised when George Steinbrenner made him a reliever.
So was he, I believe.
He was too, and we'll have to see what the Yankees do next year.
I've got to ask you, looking over the history of all the presidents of the United States, if you were to take 9 and put them on the field, who would you put at first base? To play first base, a former president.
To play first base?
Yeah. I mean, George Washington obviously couldn't move. He'd be too slow, so we'd have to put somebody else at first base.
As a matter of fact, one who was very interested in baseball, strangely enough, was Woodrow Wilson. We always think of Wilson, you know, as being the great intellectual, because he was, you know, President of Princeton and the rest, but he knew the game. Another very good athlete was Dwight Eisenhower.
Put him at second base.
Eisenhower could have played second, but I think he would be better as an outfielder.
All right, we'll put him in the outfield.
All right, fine.
Bat him clean. Who would you put at shortstop?
Oh, I don't think, well, you have to go back earlier. Maybe Madison. He was very short.
Okay. Now, Abe Lincoln, can we put him any place? I mean, you can't have a guy with the beard on the team.
Yes. Lincoln, I imagine, would not have been a particularly good athlete. He was very strong. You know, we remember his being, of course, the wood chopper and all the rest. But he would obviously be an outfielder. Maybe he's a designated hitter.
Okay. Now, how about...
in the American League.
All right. Okay. How about a pitcher?
Oh, let's see. Who would be the best pitcher? Maybe Theodore Roosevelt. You know, he's a leader type. He would get up there and he'd stomp around the mound. And particularly, I think he would be the best pitcher as a reliever. He would frighten them to death.
Okay, so we get some good guys in the team. I know you have to leave. I got to ask you one more question because I'm quite disturbed at this situation. Over in Russia, they're saying that they invented the game of baseball. I mean, is there anything we can do about that?
Well, you know, they claim to have invented a lot of things. And as far as baseball is concerned, however, I would like to see them take it up seriously. Because as we know from the Olympics, leaving out what their political philosophy is, the Russians are great people, and they are great athletes. And I would like to see the time come when not only the Russians have baseball, the Chinese have baseball, the Japanese have baseball. We have an SST supersonic plane that flies it. We have really a World Series in which the whole world plays.
Mr. President, I want to thank you very much for joining me on the post-game show.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, and I wish I had your job.
Don't say that too loud. Somebody might be listening. My guest has been former President of the United States, Richard Nixon. When we come back, we're going to talk to one of his favorite players, Darryl Strawberry. So stay with us.